It was felt here that I should clarify a few things after the post earlier today. You will see that yesterday we had visitors from a couple from America who had been very, very distressed, particularly to see the state of the horses in the square in Marrakesh. And by that we mean the Caleche horses. They were also concerned about animal welfare generally, but I want to touch on the Caleche horses and the various messages we've had since. A few things I have to make very clear is that we are perfectly aware of the extreme poverty many families are facing in Morocco. And we have tried during the pandemic to take every mule and donkey, either abandoned or whether a family could no longer support it. And we have every understanding for people who find themselves in that position. So please don't feel otherwise. I'm not condemning everyone in Morocco, far from it. As you know, I love Morocco. I have a very good relationship with Moroccan people, and long may that continue. Secondly, the Caleche horses brings into play our relationship with Spanner, and I'm sorry to raise it again. For those of you that are new viewers, you may not realise that the very large charity here in Morocco called Spanner attempted to serve me with legal papers, a letter before claim, saying that if I didn't apologise for some of the things I'd said online, remove them, never mention Spanner again, and pay them compensation, they would, without further notice, go to the High Court in England. Well, apart from that, in my view, my honest view, being an abuse of donors' money, I think they should use lawyers who understand the law. And of course, when I replied, their claim is out of time. And of course, they would have to serve me in Morocco. I'm no longer resident or domiciled in the UK. But that aside, I made it perfectly clear that I would just continue to do what we did at Jargier, and the ball is in their court. But of course, every single day I get messages from people who have seen the Caleche horses, and that they do, I'm afraid, associate it with Spanner, because many of these Caleche horses are wearing bracelets that say Spanner on them. I've tried to deal with that diplomatically, but it reaches a stage where you can no longer be diplomatic. Now, another thing I want to make very clear is historically we enjoyed a very good relationship with Spanner. Our refuge here was founded very much on a donkey that came from Spanner, and we have taken donkeys from Spanner over the years. And at one time, the Spanner vets used to come and do our castrations for us, or do them down in their clinic in Marrakesh, and we were always very grateful for that. I think things started to go a little wrong when a very long-standing chief executive retired, a new chief executive came. And just before the pandemic, we had a meeting with that then new chief executive in Marrakesh and with the director of Spanner here. And what we suggested, certainly Charles suggested, he was very positive in that meeting, that we should firstly have an emergency phone number, so that there could be a contact point for people out of hours, and that if the animal could be taken to the clinic in Marrakesh in the first instance to receive veterinary care, we of course would take it for rehabilitation and retirement at Jargier. And it was agreed that would be a good way forward. We never heard another thing. We then had a meeting with the director and another person who comments online during the first year of the pandemic, and he attempted to explain how difficult things were. And I was still actually very supportive of Spanner, whatever they may think. But of course, when the issue of the Caleche horses became a real issue, and these horses were in dire straits, as many still are, it is only right and proper that we speak up. And I will continue to do that, because we have some of those horses here. Laurel and Hardy, which you will have seen, are doing extremely well, as is Umnas, who was left at our gate starving at death's door. But of course, we can't take every horse out of the square. We don't have that sort of funding. And some of the horses down there, certainly those outside the Mamounia and some of the grand hotels in Marrakesh, are very well cared for. And they tend to come from families who've had caleches for generations, and they really do put their animals first. Others, I'm afraid, their owners have hit hard times. They've taken another job, and very often those horses are let out to what is no more than taxi drivers, really, who attempt to drive them around Marrakesh. And many of those are in a dreadful state. We've anguished as to what we should do, and I do think it's going to be an issue ongoing. Now, someone just posted on the Instagram feed that Spanner, the charity here in Morocco, had received £1 million from the UK during 2020. Now, in the old days, it never occurred to me to check or verify anything like that. But of course, when I'm faced with potential legal proceedings, which may well go ahead, of course I investigate and I research. And anyone can go onto the Charity Commission website in the UK. If you put in search and you put in Georgia, our accounts will come up. We're still very small, and we managed to run this place on 114,000 from the UK and a few thousand dirhams, which of course we had here in Morocco. I also know that you can, in the search engine, put in Spanner, and it'll take you to their accounts, which of course I did, and was utterly shocked, because I saw there in a breakdown of their accounts how much does come into Morocco. So that may well be justified and it may well be accounted for. But I think what we need to do is look back over the period of the pandemic, because quite honestly, they were unusual circumstances. I saw that Spanner had their million plus 300,000 for education. And really, during the pandemic, the emphasis should have been on alleviating the suffering of the equines. So what I'm calling for is a full investigation, and I hold my hands up. I'm prepared to be investigated. We want to know what happened and where hard-earned donors' money went, because I can promise you, if a donor sends £10 or £5 a month, they believe it's going to the welfare of the animals. And if you go and look at that page, you will see that Spanner does work across internationally. And I've always said to people, whatever Spanner thinks, they've got it wrong. I've always said to people, don't stop your donations to Spanner, because they do so much work around the world, and that's important. And just have a look at what was spent in Botswana or some of the other countries. Very little by comparison. I think it's important donors know where their money's going to. And I hope there is a proper, reasonable explanation. But really, taking me to court isn't the way to do it. Let's have a proper inquiry. Thank you.